Swann-Herbert, spiraling through space and time. Welcome to this open house on the Transformation Course 2017. So, part of this process is that it's a year-long process. And it's a year-long process to give you an opportunity to really gain a deep experience of each one of the variables, which is why we say that the transformation course is bringing your variables to life. So we take a 6-week journey through each one of the variables so that you can get an experience in using the tools and being able to express what you notice so that you can then get some feedback.
So when we're looking at variables, what are we looking at? Well, you can see here this variable control panel. We're looking at the substructure of these particular aspects in our design. And Ra called this a control panel. Not that we are sitting at the controls, but that in essence, these 4 aspects, the design sun-earth, the personality sun-earth, the design nodes, and the personality nodes, in essence, set us up for the experience that we're here to live out in this particular vehicle.
So understand what we're looking at. We're looking at our crystals. We're looking at the personality crystal. We're looking at the design crystal. And we're looking at, when we explore the nodes, we're looking at the magnetic monopole that pulls these together.
So when we're looking at this control panel, like any good manual for how to use something, how to go about this process, we have to deconstruct. We have to take these one at a time so that we can truly understand the mechanics that are taking place and learn to recognize our unique experience of them. So we take you through this control panel. And where we begin is here. Let me get my pencil. New classroom, we're still learning this. Here in the design sun-earth. Now, transformation is a lifelong process. Yes, we take you through this understanding and mechanics and you beginning your process of actually working with the variables in a year. But it's truly designed to be a lifelong process.
What we're doing in these segments is we're providing you with tools so that you can explore your experiment of what it is for you to uniquely be alive. You see, each one of these is different. And there are no two, even if they have the same similar configuration, there's no 2 people that are going to experience it in the same way. So what we're doing is we're helping you to recognize that there is no dogma here. There is no homogenized way of experiencing this. There's only your unique way of experiencing it. And we provide you with the mechanics that you'll need in order for you to get deeper and deeper into your experiment so that ultimately you experience for yourself what it is not to be alive in the world, but to be alive as you in the world.
So this lifelong process, and it's an if, because all of us are coming to human design as adults, more or less. There are some children being raised in it. but the design, what what the human development process from the nine-centered human, it's a 84-year lifespan. It's built on a Uranian lifespan with distinct phases of development. And the process of the mechanical awareness of the variables follows these stages of development. So from birth until the Saturn return at around age 29 is the nine-centered childhood. It doesn't mean that we live with our parents until we're 30. In some cases we do. But that there is ongoing development, particularly in the brain, throughout this stage.
Remember, this is very different than our ancestors. Our ancestors lived a Saturn return. I mean, that was the length of their life on planet Earth. So if they lived to be 60, wow, they were old.
Midlife, you were an adult at 15 in a lot of cases over the years of the seven-centered span. So the important part of this stage of development is the establishment of the strategy of the type and the inner authority, developing its process of decision making. And this mirrors the brain's development throughout this stage. Now, until the Saturn return at around age 29, it is the design Sun-Earth variable, that is the important variable for development. The PHS digestive regimen, which is critical to the development of the brain and strategy and inner authority.
So PHS, the primary health system, digestive regimen. What does this do? Well, it provides for enhanced well-being, and it also provides for the brain's potential as the platform for consciousness. See, food is our deepest and oldest conditioning. By providing the form with its correct nutrition based upon the individual's digestion, we enter into a profound process which enhances the body and aligns it to its unique and differentiated sensory awareness. And that is what human design is here for. It's to help us to develop our awareness of what being alive is in this unique form that we live in.
And in this course, in the first transformation, our emphasis is on the PHS, on the digestive regimen. And we're going to explore conditioning around digestion and food and this well-being of the brain and the body. And we deal with this with each individual that comes to the course. So it's not a one size fits all. We go into the specifics of color and tone of each individual. We go into the specifics of having a left or a right functionality here in the brain and in the form intelligence. Because as Dharmen said earlier, here we're dealing with crystals. We're dealing with the design crystal itself, the very structure of the crystal and how it filters the intelligence that arrives at the surface at our inner authority.
My experience tells me that the design crystal, the reason that we can stabilize the form in this lifetime is that it is a one-use crystal. It's only for this lifetime. So the stabilization of the inner authority becomes critical to the well-being. It also enables us to get the life that's here for us to experience and not attempting to experience what all of life has to offer.
You know, one of the challenges of PHS is that it's often misunderstood as being a diet. It's about what you eat. And, you know, that's a very superficial understanding.
Homogenized understanding.
Food, what we eat, when we eat, how much we eat, is an inner authority decision. You see, PHS, first and foremost, is about the digestion, right? We have to provide the vehicle, the body itself, and the brain, because they're not separate, with the nutrients that are vital to not only maintain the well-being of the body, doing the repair and maintenance at a cellular level, but to enhance the brain itself. Why is that important to enhance the brain? Because it's the hardware. You know, if we think of the brain-mind complex like a computer has both hardware and software. Design side here is the hardware. It's the memory storage, it's the processor. Personality and personality consciousness are software. So we have to enhance the hardware that enables, that sets the foundation for a potential shift in consciousness. And this is why it is so critical for the PHS to be the foundation in this transformation process.
The way in which we digest our food is the way in which we digest our life's experiences. There is no difference. So it becomes critical to actually know how you digest life.
So in the second transformation, we're dealing with a different stage of development in the nine-centered lifespan. When we reach this Saturn return at around age 29, that begins this next stage. And in this stage, the foundation, ideally, of strategy and authority and PHS are already set in place. Those mechanics are operating, which leads to the recognition of one's individual path in life. Think about what takes place at around age 30. It's when most adults begin to establish their career, their relationships, where they live, who they meet, their long-term relationships, they meet their children, and so on and so forth. This path in life becomes established.
It's where we begin to look at life and say, what is my purpose here? What am I doing here? This is that exploration. Now, understand something. There is really no distinction in terms of when these things actually take place. We're doing this in order for you to recognize that there are these stages, but they're actually all happening simultaneously. But what we're helping you to do is to understand what the dynamic of each step that your life is based on. Remember, this is your variable that your life is based on. We're helping you to see each one of those steps in and of itself. But you need to understand they are actually all taking place simultaneously.
Right. It's not like we stop practicing our strategy and authority because we find our path in life. No, we have to navigate along our path. And in this phase, the emphasis, it's literally taking place through the South Node resonances. And, our path in life continues to unfold until, we take the path out the door and, into death. But this particular phase from around 30 to around the midlife, around 42 to 44, it's the South Node that is the emphasis. And this, how do we find our path in life that becomes the quest. And during this time, it's the design external variable, the environment, that is the key for development.
Now remember, we're still on the design side. So we're still dealing with how do we stabilize our life experience?
You know, where the PHS deals with the body on the inside, environment deals with
where the body goes.
Yeah, where the body is. Because the body is never separate from where it is. I mean, that seems like an obvious statement, but because we look at body graphs, we're often interpreting the design as if it exists in isolation.
Look, when the form is operating correctly, then it's essential for it to be aligned to its correct path, to its unique environmental resonance for functioning in the world. Resonance. Another word for that is vibe. You know, when you find your place, you vibe with it. You know it. But you have to know what your vibe is to know when you found it.
And in this second transformation, we explore this phenomenon of resonance and how to recognize it.
It's through the experiences in our life that we meet the people, that we meet situations which shape what we learn, which shape what we experience, and what ultimately leads to what we learn about life, our wisdom. So through this transformation, we come into alignment with our unique and correct path in life. We meet our stories, our life story, and its natural unfolding. And the thing we recognize is that our path isn't us. It's where we are and it's who we meet, but it's not us. So we need to know what actually resonates with us.
So in this 6-week course, we'll explore conditioning around environment and observe how each individual operates through this experience of physical resonance, because it's body resonance. It's not mental resonance. It's physical resonance and the effective transference. What happens when we lose our navigation and we find in ourselves in a place that we do not resonate with? And we explore in depth the specifics of the nodes in their substructure, but also this right and left orientation and its impact and connection with the body and the life itself. So again, like PHS, there's this homogenized idea out there that environment is a particular place. It's not. It's not a place at all, because it's a frequency. And we can meet that frequency if we're paying attention to our path. We can recognize that frequency as we move through space and time. And we can recognize when we're no longer resonant with the frequency that's around us. It's in essence our GPS. Like Dharmen was saying earlier, when we're dealing with the nodes, we're dealing with magnetic monopole. We have a navigation system. We have to learn how to attend to it, how to become aware of it and observe as it's taking place.
See, awareness is really just being present, but being present to being present. It's not accidental. It's really recognizing not all of life is correct for everybody. Those things that are correct for us, we need to be in touch with. Why? Because they help us to gain the life experience that we are uniquely designed for.
So once we're established along our path in life and we reach this midlife, another phase begins. And this is characterized by the Uranian opposition. It's, half of a Uranian life cycle, right? We have a Uranian lifespan of about 84 years. So the midlife of that heralds this third stage of nine-centered development. And in this stage, it's aligning. Yes, we're still in this process of strategy, authority, PHS, recognizing the resonance. But here it switches to being less concerned about where we go and what we are doing to how one sees these experiences that are uniquely translated into the mind. How do we translate what we see uniquely? You see, Dharmen and I are sitting side by side in our office looking out the window. Where we are is extremely similar. There's 12 or 14 inches between us. But how we see that view as we look out the window is unique to each of us. None of us see the same experience in the same way because we have our own translation, how we see and observe that experience and translate it into the mind. So there is a shift at the midlife from what one sees along one's unique path to how one sees. And this takes place through the North Node.
And one of the things that becomes really critical to recognize, and we go very deeply into this, is that when we move towards our wisdom stage, because that's what we're doing, when we move towards what we actually learn from our experiences in life, we move into an area that is unstable in its nature. Like the body is designed to be stable as it moves through our life. But the mind is designed to be unstable. Why? Because there is always a dynamic at work. How we look at something has a dynamic to it. And that dynamic is always this or that. That's the dynamic of the mind. This or that. That in and of itself is unstable, but it's meant to be that way. We are not meant to look at things exactly the same way every single time. Why? Because we are actually built to recognize that we're moving through time and space. We're never in the same place more than once.
So here we're making this dramatic shift in this third transformation from this process of stabilizing the form to recognizing the inherent instability in the personality, the this and the that. And this shift in this phase. This phase takes place from the midlife and continues till around age 50 at the Chiron return. And during this time, it's again the external variable, a nodal variable. So we're dealing with monopole, we're dealing with resonance. But here, it's the resonant perspective, this frequency of how we're designed to see and its transference that is the key for our development.
So perspective, this key that we have to our experience of our reality. When we change our perspective, our awareness transforms naturally. There's no work. Based upon our variables, each of us has a unique way in which we're designed to take in the world, how we're designed to see. It's through this transformation that we begin to pay attention to the resonance in how we see that is essential for us to become aware. And we learn What distracts us away from our unique way of seeing?
So in this, the third transformation, we're dealing with perception, perspective, and beginning to examine this mental software. We're going to explore perspective and its transference. And we'll observe the mechanics because, hate to tell you folks, software is all mechanical too. We're going to observe how each individual translates experience into the mind and how conditioning is supported or exposed through our viewpoint. And once again, there is a left and right impact of the variable as well as the substructure to the specific gates. And we'll explore these personality nodes and their connection with the mind. Because ultimately, how we see leads to what we think and conceptualize about. So this next stage of development begins at around age 50 with the Chiron return. And it's not an opposition, that's a typo, sorry. It's a full return of the Chiron, I guess you'd call it a dwarf planet. It begins this fourth and final stage of the nine-centered development. And again, it's built upon the foundation of strategy, authority, PHS, environmental and perspective resonance. And ultimately, that leads to the development of a mature outer authority. What gets expressed here through the personality center. And it's also where we develop this capacity to be able to observe the mind's motivation.
Now, one of the things that Ra made very clear is that our mind, our personality, it's not for us to use as our inner authority. Our personality, it's for us to share with the other. So when we look at our motivation, it's really what gets shared with the other. It's not what motivates us. It's what we share with the other through our outer authority.
And of course, outer authority, it has to be asked for, invited, initiated, and when it's correct, to share it through our inner authority decision-making process. It's not just spouting off what we think about. So here in this next stage of development, there's a shift in emphasis from how we see along our path in life to how one uniquely thinks about what has been learned through observing the life, and then how that wisdom is expressed through outer authority when it's asked for, when it is correct through the inner authority. And during this time, it's this personality internal. Again, here we're dealing with crystal structure, in this case, the personality crystal itself, and the, commonly called, as Dharmen said, the motivation, which is the key for development in this stage.
Look, we're passengers in our vehicle. When our vehicles are operating correctly and we are aligned to our correct path in life, then it's just sitting back, looking out the window, enjoying the ride. This being alive, it's a ride, and it's meant to be enjoyed. Now, what do we uniquely conceptualize out of what we observe? What motivates us to share with the other what we think, what conclusions we arrive at? It's through this transformation that we ultimately align this unstable mind to its correct cognitive potential. And it's always going to be unstable. And then we have something that is truly unique that we have gained from experiencing this ride that we can share and offer to others. It's our own unique expression of what it is for us to be conscious.
So in this, the fourth transformation, it again a 6-week course will explore motivation and its transfer. And we'll explore these mechanics of how each of us as individuals processes memory, both short term and long term, into thought, and then how conditioning is either supported or exposed through our motivation and transfer. So we'll explore this left and right expression of the mind and the way each variable contributes to our own unique process of conceptualization. How we reach this capacity for outer authority and, you know, who is observing, who is watching, who is witnessing this process taking place.
Okay, so that is the house that we're presenting. And now comes the open house part of the discussion. So, any questions, anything, observations, anything you want to share? There is a place to write.
And I am, for those who would like to use the mic, I am going to post the question and answer mode. And you'll see in the top left area, if you have a question and you'd like to use the mic, you can raise your hand. Click on the hand, and then we'll go through the question process. Otherwise, at the bottom left, you can type in your question. Ernestine has a question. Hi, about the first transformation. It is an internal authority, the decision what we eat. Is that correct? Let me get it up here. Yes. What we eat, when we eat, how much we eat, what choices about what food we take in is an inner authority process.
But it is also the process of how we take life in. For myself, I have a PHS that is outer vision, and my outer vision is key to the daylight. So for me, I get most of my life experience during the day. I eat most of my meals during the day when it's light out. When it's dark, that is not a time for me. Doesn't mean I can't eat then. It just means I'm not going to get what I could get if it were light out, in terms of the way in which I digest my food and the way in which I meet whatever experience there is available for me.
Now, Dharmen's a reflector. So his inner authority, he has this lunar cycle and this and that. But in terms of what he eats, when he eats, how much he eats, through the variable substructure, he can be in touch with his inner authority awareness. And this is part of the PHS mechanics that we help people to recognize through this first transformation.
Any other questions?
So first we're going to call on Yana. And once I click on your question, it will ask you a question.
Hi, can you hear me? Um, well, my question is, did you experience that PHS helps someone even if they're not strongly in their inner authority yet? Or perhaps to put it, did PHS help prior to people engaging in their inner authority strongly?
Okay, first of all, strongly is a subjective term. So, that.
No, the answer is no. We have not found that prior to inner authority recognition, strategy and authority, that PHS can be very helpful.
And at the same time, it does enhance the connection to the inner authority.
Once you're into that process.
Which is why we actually require that someone actually have a reading from an analyst prior to taking the course, and that they're actively experimenting with their inner authority process. Because this is not a course where you're going to learn your inner authority. You do need to be practicing your inner authority, and PHS does enhance that connection. Does that answer your question? So Beata, we asked you if you wanted to ask your question. You have to click on that symbol if you want to ask your question.
So wait a minute. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me now? Hello. Okay. I had a feeling I had done this course before, and but I still haven't got what the south node and north node really mean in my form. And I'm well, will I get it this time? I mean, of course, it's up to me, but also up to you how to explain, because I haven't got the meaning. Would you go through this again? Thank you.
Yeah, we will go through it again. But Beata, because you've gone through it, if you're having issues or difficulties with understanding, then you email us and you tell us what your difficulties in understanding is, and we will help you sort it out. You do not need to take the course again.
And you have all of one of the things with this course is that everybody gets the download in both video and audio formats, and you have the material. You can go back and review it.
And we recognize that physically there is some disability that you have in terms of retrieving and dealing with all of this. back and forth. But, we've known you now for several years, and it seems like you've managed. So if you have issues, email us.
Okay. So next we have a question from Elena. And she asks, is there any connection between the gates and the lines in the personality, design, Sun, Earth, and nodes, and the underlying variables and their PHS, motivation, environment, and perspective?
Yes, and that is that each one of them provides you with what it is that you're going to be dealing with.
You can see that we've circled the whole thing here. It's not just the substructure of the line. It's the gate, the line, the color, the tone, the orientation of the variable. All of that works together, and it works together uniquely within the quantum of one's individual design. So each course, we will take you through a deconstruction of that particular variable, but we will also bring it back up to the surface for you so you get a sense of how it all works together.
And folks, you got to understand, what we're doing is we're providing you with the tools that you can then explore for the rest of your life, because that's really what this is. This is our life process. But using the tools, we will give you experience in how to actually use the tool.
And also, Antje has a question. Now, I see you both typed and raised your hand. So I'm going to read your question, and then if you have more, we can open the mic. Antje writes, I try it this way. For me as a reflector, I'm really in trouble with my daily life decisions. What to do in daily life. Mundane daily requests cannot make it over 28 and a half days. I read that Ross said that for reflector, motivation can help. Would you say that?
Okay, so motivation can help. See, part of the difficulty with being a reflector is that Ra was a manifestor. Ra understood the basic aspect, but there's no way he could understand the actual experience of reflection. We are the only type that has nothing that's defined. So what that means is that what our 28 and a half days does for us, it puts us in the ballpark that we need to be in so that we can be available for what life brings. But it does not tell us moment by moment by moment by moment how we should deal with what life shows up. That is really based on how we meet life, which is our PHS. So for me, my life is I look at patterns. So I look at my own pattern. I look at Leela's pattern. When we dialogue with students, I look at their pattern. And it's out of those patterns that I get to experience what I'm here to experience. Day-to-day decisions are based on what patterns I recognize. Now, if you have a different PHS, then understanding how you actually meet this life will give you what you need in order for you to deal with mundane, daily, moment-by-moment decisions.
And, something to clarify about decision making and strategy. Strategy and authority are two separate mechanics. Strategy relates to type and aura, how the aura is designed to operate. And the strategy of reflector is that life needs to initiate you. Life has to come into your aura. These little lines here are the aura, and then the arrow, it's coming in. Okay, so that strategy. Then the decision-making process. If it involves people, places, projects, right? If it involves, in essence, other people that you are taking on, that is a 28.5-day process. If they don't give you that time, then you know right away it's not for you. But if it's between you and you, when you brush your teeth, what food you eat, what clothes you wear, what book you read, whether you take a walk or you sit and watch TV, those are still inner authority decisions. But they do not require the strategy of it coming from outside your aura. They're not mental decisions, but they do not need 28.5 days for a reflector, because you have a PHS that, like Dharmen says, informs you, if you are paying attention and being aware of how your particular
sampling
is taking place. So that's a great question, Jay, and hopefully that answers it. Any other questions? Elena, do you need any further clarification, or anybody else? Ernestine has another question. The period for each transformation are 5 weeks or 6? No, there's 6 weeks, but I could have listed them incorrectly. Let's take a look here. They are 6 weeks. 24. I don't have a calendar in front of me, so I may have written them down incorrectly. But then the first transformation begins on the 24th, and it will go for 6 weeks. All classes are at 19 GMT, which is 11 a.m. Pacific time. And
okay, look, we offer this to those who are ready. You're the only one who knows whether you are ready for this process. We invite you. We ask, is this correct for you? We initiate you as a reflector. If this sampling provides you with what you need to make that determination. But it is up to you to trust your inner authority. Do not feel any pressure. If it's correct for you, great. It's available. It begins on the 24th of February. If it's great. So part of what this process that we've initiated here, this open house, is really to deal with any questions or issues that have come up for you during the presentation that you would like us to further elaborate on.
So each 6-week course, and there's 4 6-week courses over the year, they're going to consist of about an hour and a half online classes. Now, that is determined by the length of the discussion. If there's lots to discuss, classes will be longer. Usually the first class is a little shorter because there's mostly introductory information. Each week there will be weekly experiments, and it's up to you and what's correct for you as to how you participate in these experiments. These are not tests. It's always, our experiments are about the self-observation process, how you notice these mechanics operating for you. The following week, we'll get together and we begin each class with a discussion of what's been noticed, what those observations have brought you.
So if, for example, you say, I would love to take this course, but I can't be available at those times. Well, you're going to get a download of the course. You'll be able to send in your observations prior to the next class. And so you still will be able to participate, and you will be included in the discussion, and we will provide feedback.
And so in essence, students that take the course by download, we read their observations. I read them. I'm the energy being. I read the observations for them, and then you're part of the discussion. You get that discussion as a part of the download. And then each week there's also new information that then becomes the subject of the weekly experiment.
Since we do these classes in English, because that's all Leela and I really know, there are some people who feel uncomfortable speaking in class because of the language. So send in your observation, we read them into the record, we give the feedback, it's no problem. And you can still show up at the class.
And as you can see, like, Beata said she's taken this course before. We remain available to our students. Once you become an alumni of this process, it doesn't end, right? Once you've finished it. Every course is followed by a private session with us, so that, things that come up after the course ends, there's always a little gap so that you get time to practice on your own. Questions arise, things come up, things that you're not comfortable discussing in class. The private coaching session is a great time to explore that. In addition, as ongoing support, quarterly, 4 times a year, we have transformation meetings, which are open to all the current students as well as alumni. We have over 60 people now that have gone through the transformation course. Not all of them show up every quarter, but it's a time where we come together, where we can share what we're observing in our experience. We can hear from one another.
Now, we've been doing this for a while. So those 60 people have been with us throughout every course that we've done. Now, part of the thing for you to get, and for me as a reflector, I really hope you take this in. This isn't for everyone. If you are ready, great. If you are not, that's okay. You should never feel like, oh, I want to take this, but I'm not really prepared because I haven't really gotten deep into my experiment. That's okay. There will be other courses that you may find to be helpful. 2, we'll probably do this again next year. We love this process, so we'll probably do it again next year. Who knows? That might be the time for you then.
Timing is everything. It's got to be correct. So in terms of, if you're not sure that you're ready for this yet.
Were there any other questions?
No, I think we're down at the bottom. Anshi's got one. This knowledge about the day-by-day me and me decision-making for reflectors should find its way to all the written material. I was missing so much. Well, we all are at the beginning, Anshi. I'm an emotional authority generator. And when I had my reading with Ra almost 18 years ago, he said, at least sleep on a decision. At least sleep on it. And when I actually got a sense of what it meant to make an inner authority decision through my emotional clarity, it was very different from just sleeping on it. So part of it is that as beginners, we establish the practice of strategy and authority. And then as we continue to experiment, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper.
Look, one of the difficulties for reflectors, we represent 1% of people on planet Earth. Now, that's a lot of people, but it's still only 1%. As a consequence, there is no other being, no projector, no generator, no manifester that can provide us with an understanding of how we operate. We are unique, but that uniqueness also limits what gets, quote unquote, discussed, right? I mean, mostly you hear about generators. Why? They're 70% of the people. You hear a lot about projectors. Why? They're 20 some odd percent of the people. That's 90% there. So what you have to recognize is that when opportunities are presented for you to engage in a professional course by someone who, in essence, has really gained the understanding of how reflectors operate, then if it's correct for you, you can take advantage of it. If it's not, yeah, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, I'm always somebody that a reflector can write to, but that doesn't mean that, everything that you write to me is going to lead to you becoming aware, because it takes time. I mean, I found this information, I was almost 60 years old. I'm 75 now. It's like I've been at this for a while. So I have a very personal experience of reflection. And yeah.
Yeah, and writing to us, office@secretofbeingyou.com is our email. It's the best place to reach us. If you have questions that have come up later for you, not everybody's spontaneous. So you can always email us. Also, if it's absolutely correct for you to be in this course and you have some budgeting issues, we do make custom payment plans available. We don't charge anything extra. We're not in the interest business or anything like that. But we can work out a payment plan that meets your budget. So that's available to you as well. If you're not sure if it's correct for you, then here's some suggestions. Have a reading from a professional. Get started in your experiment. Have a PHS reading from a qualified analyst or practitioner. In the fall, we'll offer a course through the IHDS called Radical Deconditioning. I highly recommend it because it's where we give you the mechanics of openness and how to begin your self-observation process. And we actually recommend it. We don't require it, but we do recommend it. And even those who are taking the transformation course this year, you may want to consider taking Radical Decon in the fall.
Which is oftentimes how it happens. People who take Radical Decon, they join the transformation. People part of the transformation, they recognize that their basic skills are somewhat limited. They take the Radical Deconditioning.
And Ernestine writes, I'm impressed by the setup of this course. I'll sleep some more over it. Emotional generator. Yay. Thanks so much. By the way, for what you offer, I do not find it overpriced. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Any other questions? Anything anyone want to run by us at this point before we say goodbye?
All right. We do greatly appreciate your joining us today. And, do for yourself what you need to. This is your life. It's nobody else's. So do what's correct for you. So until next time, have a great, wonderful life. Enough for today.